if you have faith, nothing shall be impossible unto you. So what I want to talk to you guys about this morning is the impossible. And if you have a look again, I was on WhatsApp too. Social media sometimes can be a very powerful tool. But I saw this picture on WhatsApp, and I'm just going to put in my own words. But if you look at the word impossible, the primary word in the word impossible is possible. Okay? It says I am and then possible. So the biggest word in the word impossible is actually possible. So I submit to you this morning that regardless of where you find yourself in whatever area and sphere of your life, that with God, nothing is impossible. Which leads me to these next couple of points, and I wanted to start off also this morning with a little story, which you've probably heard of before, but I'll just share it again for the sake of today. And there was a story of this young boy, and this young boy, he went to his dad, and he wanted to catch his dad out, right? So he walked up to his dad, and he said to his dad, "Dad, how big are aeroplanes?" And his dad said, "My boy, they are massive," because he used to work at the airport, so he knows how big, airplanes are. He said, "They're massive, my son." And he said to Dad, "You're lying. Look at that one there in the sky. Look how small it is. I can put it here between my fingers." So his dad looked and he smiled at him. His dad said to him, "Come with me, my boy." So he used to work at the airport, as mentioned. He said, "Come, let's go." So now they're busy driving. They went to Lanseria Airport, right? Not OR Tambo, but the Lanseria one. Okay? So takes him through the gate, and now he's walking with his son. Powerful story. He's walking with his son. They're walking up to this massive, massive Boeing that's parked there in the parking lot. And he's busy holding his son's hand. And he looks at his son, gives him a bit of a smirk like this. You can just see his son's eyes breaking big like this. Because the closer this little boy is getting to this big aeroplane, he realizes how massive this aeroplane actually is. Eventually the little boy looks at his dad and he smiles at his dad. His dad smiles back at him too, and he says, "Dad, you know what? You're right. These aeroplanes are massive." Now maybe you're asking yourself, what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that the further we move away from God, the bigger our problems tend to become. However, the closer we move to Him, the more we realize how big and how majestic and how sovereign and how great and how almighty and how powerful God actually is. The same applies with fear in our own lives. The closer you move to the fear, the bigger the fear becomes in your life, compared to the closer you move to God, the smaller that fear ultimately becomes. Which leads me to a couple of other points that I wanted to share with you all this morning, that our lives as individuals are simply products of how we've spent our time. I'm going to try that one again. Our lives are simply results and products of how we as individuals have spent our time. Because life is ultimately spelled time. Your life, my life, is spelled T-I-M-E. So for example, if you had to ask me how old I am, and I tell you the amount of years, what I'm actually doing is I'm telling you the amount of time I've currently been here on this planet. Does that make sense? So if I'm 30 years old, I'm explaining to you I've been here for 30 years. In a year, there's months. In a month, there's days. In days, there's hours. In hours, there's minutes. In minutes, there's seconds. In seconds, there's milliseconds. But it all boils back down to time.
Yeah.
And we as individuals, this is why time is so important. Because time is even referred to as a currency. That's why we say things like, "I spent time with my wife." Because it's a currency. Time is extremely valuable because time ultimately equals your life. So, for lack of a better term, you're either going to spend, where's the Bible? You're either going to spend time trying to discover the truth of what God is saying with regards to your circumstance, or you'll spend your time pondering about every other assumption and illusion of how it potentially can go wrong. But either way, you're spending time. So your life ultimately is a product, therefore, of how you spend your time. Like, listen, no one's forcing anyone here right now, all right, for you to spend time with God. That is your decision for yourself. Because the reality and truth is, every one of us seated over here on a daily basis, we all got stuff to do. Every one of us have got things to do. I've got things to do. My wife got things to do. Sam got things to do. Everyone got something to do today. But realize that whatever you're going to use that time for, your life will ultimately be a result of how you use that time moving forward. Jesus used his time here on earth extremely effectively. So I submit to you, the number of the years that you lived on this planet does not determine whether or not you were successful. Because there's a guy in the Bible over here by the name of Methuselah. Aren't you glad your name's not Methuselah? Alright, that's a long name to spell. Can you imagine being in grade 1 trying to spell your name, Methuselah? That's a long name to spell. It's like trying to spell Mississippi, that being your name. Okay? But think about it. There's a guy by the name of Methuselah. He was the oldest guy to have ever lived. But what did he do? Compared to Jesus, 33 and a half years of age, and look at how effective he was. Because he lived with intention, he lived with purpose.